Are you unknowingly making these 10 common new parent mistakes that could be impacting your baby's development and your well-being? In this video, we'll discuss the eye-opening truth behind these parenting pitfalls, supported by the latest research. The first new parent mistake is trying to do everything yourself on your own and not asking for help. The truth of it is, the cliche is true, it takes a village. You need a support network around you when you've got a new baby. It just is so important. You need people around you not just to help you, but actually to pick up on anything that might be not quite right. Johns Hopkins Medicine has reported that up to 85% of new parents experience the baby blues after delivery. But the CDC has also said that 1 in 7 new parents experience postpartum depression. Having people around you who know and love you may pick up on the signs and symptoms of when baby blues actually is postpartum depression earlier than you can. Despite the prevalence of postpartum depression, up to 60% of women who display these symptoms don't get a diagnosis clinically, and 50% of those don't receive any treatment. It's commonly understood, and research has supported, that one of the main reasons that women don't receive a diagnosis or treatment is because they're ashamed or they don't share how they're feeling. But we know so much more about postpartum depression now. It's not like our parents' generation, however many decades ago. It's much more commonly spoken about, and there is no shame at all for seeking help. Some people can mix up the baby blues and postpartum depression. Baby blues, like I say, is really very common. Mood swings, irritable, maybe just feeling a little overwhelmed and too tired to really eat properly or take care of yourself. Postpartum depression has some much more severe symptoms. Postpartum depression has many signs and symptoms, including anger, anxiety, intrusive thoughts, overwhelming sadness and despair, and not bonding with your baby. You need to seek help straight away if you feel that you're going through this. But having other people around you is just so key. They will be able to see these signs and symptoms so much quicker than you in a lot of cases. And that early intervention can have a really massive impact on the outcome. Trying to do it all as a new mum, it's just not possible. You will experience burnout. You've got a brand new person to look after. You've changed. You're recovering from, if you've had a C-section, pretty major surgery. And if you've had a vaginal birth, it's hours of labor, the whole experience. You need to have people around you to help you. I'll link below in the description to some recent research about postpartum depression. And if you want me to do a future video going into a bit more depth, I'm happy to do that. The second new parent mistake is not learning the early and late signs of tiredness and hunger in your baby. Like I've said in other videos, parenting a new child, new baby, is just trying to work out what the problem is. So if you understand what your baby is trying to communicate to you, you'll get to the answer an awful lot quicker. The top 3 signs of hunger in your baby are rooting, sucking fingers or fists, and crying. Like I say, some of the hunger and tiredness cues you get from your baby can actually be the same, and there are some overlaps. So, for example, some early signs of tiredness and hunger are sucking on hands and rubbing eyes. And some late signs of tiredness and hunger are fussiness and increased activity. There are loads of different tiredness and hunger signs, but you need to learn your baby and their individual characteristics and tendencies. I'll put a link below in the description to a free download to learn the early and late signs of hunger and tiredness in your baby. The third new parenting mistake is not persevering with breastfeeding. I'm a breastfeeding coach, love breastfeeding. I breastfed both of my children for well over a year each. And trust me, I know it's tough. There are plenty of challenges. Your breast milk is optimized for your baby. It has all the antibodies it needs. It changes depending on your health, your baby's health. But also, breastfeeding is good for the mum too. It can help reduce postpartum bleeding and has actually shown that it can reduce the risk of ovarian and breast cancer in the mother. If you want to learn a bit more about breastfeeding and the amazing benefits of breast milk, head over to my website frombumptobubble.com. I've got well over 100 blog posts about breastfeeding and lots of other aspects of baby care. I know there are lots of reasons that women don't continue their breastfeeding journey or don't start. Sometimes it's extremely uncomfortable. There can be milk supply issues, your baby's not well, you're not well at delivery. And one big barrier is women who go back to work. And clearly, in most circumstances, you can't take a baby to work with you. What you might be interested to know is that most women in the United States have breast pumps covered in their insurance under the Affordable Care Act. And the Fair Labor Standards Act covers all women in all 50 states to be able to pump their breast milk at work. It's a slightly different story in the UK, but the Equality Act of 2010 does protect breastfeeding women in the workplace as well. And it ensures that employers have to allow you a place to pump your breast milk at work. In the UK, we tend to have a slightly longer maternity leave, so this isn't quite as much of an issue here. But I know this is a big barrier in the US, with some women going back to work within a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 months. That is bound to disrupt a breastfeeding journey. But with so many breast pumps on the market and support from insurance companies, you really can still give your baby breast milk. The fourth common new parent mistake is putting your baby in restrictive seats, otherwise known as containers, too much. It sounds like a funny sort of phrase, containers, but what we mean by that is baby carriers, car seats, strollers and prams, bouncers, swings, rockers, all those devices that we use throughout the day to put your baby in a safe place. Unfortunately, using these containers too much may actually restrict your baby's development. They need to be wriggling around. They need to be stretching and reaching, tummy time, all that sort of thing. The American Physical Therapy Association has a term, container baby syndrome. Sounds pretty scary, but what they're actually talking about is a few of these conditions that really do need some medical treatment for your baby. Container baby syndrome encapsulates flat head, torticollis, facial asymmetry, and obesity. If you're concerned that your baby's been in containers a bit too much, then don't panic just yet. In general, they need to be out of the containers more than they're in them. I mean, there are some figures that you could look up on the internet. You know, they should only be in containers of 10 minutes of the day or 1 hour a day or whatever. But there aren't any specific studies about this, certainly no up-to-date ones. So just try to make sure that unless you really need your baby in the carrier or you need your baby in the car seat, get them out, get them on the floor, or at least put them down for naps in their cot and not the car seat or stroller if you possibly can. It's difficult when you're out and about, especially if you've planned a whole day out and there's nowhere safe on the floor for the baby. But just keep this in mind, that they do need to be able to move and stretch for their development. If you're concerned that your baby is showing some signs of preference to looking one side, or their head is a bit flatter than it should be after the 6-week period, please get in touch with your doctor and get an assessment. It may be nothing, it might be normal, or it might need some treatment and some therapy. Don't take any risks. Just go and get a professional assessment. The fifth common new parent mistake is poor baby carrier position. And this is kind of related to what I was just saying. There is a risk of developmental dysplasia of the hip. Bit of a tongue twister. But what that means is that the hips aren't developing properly in your baby if they're in a poor position. I used a baby carrier a lot. I used the stretchy ones. We have to wrap all the fabric around. I used the structured ones. I tried so many different types. But the International Hip Dysplasia Institute recommend that you have the baby facing you, mummy facing, for the first 6 months. and that their knees are higher than their bottoms and their legs wrapped around you. This is the perfect hip position for babies. The sixth common new parent mistake is so common, and it's leaving your baby unattended for any period of time. The most common time to do this is on the changing table, or maybe you've left them asleep on the sofa, or left them asleep in their rocker. It's just not safe to do this. As a paramedic, I have been to babies that have fallen off changing tables. I've had a couple of near misses myself where I've been changing my baby and thought, oh, I've run out of nappies. Oh, the bag's just on the other side of the room. I'll just go and get them. And then I've been rustling around, turned round and got back to my baby in the nick of time. It's so quick. Please make sure your changing area is fully stocked with everything that you need. Falling off changing tables isn't the only problem with leaving your baby unattended. You need to be especially careful, obviously, if you've got any pets or other children who could access your baby. Other children might think it's fun to play with the baby, which is lovely, but they will not have age-appropriate toys for your baby and it could be unsafe. One common thing is leaving your baby unattended in a rocker or a bouncer because they've nodded off, it's their nap time anyway, and you think, oh, I can't move them onto their cot, we'll just have a nap here today. We've all done it. But when babies are very young, they have very poor head control. And there is a risk because of the design of these devices that their head can actually tilt forward and restrict their airflow. As a paramedic, of course, I know about the airways of babies. And I would just urge you that even if your baby has fallen asleep and it's nap time, or you've been trying to get them to sleep, please transfer into a cot on their back safely in a safe sleep environment. The seventh common new parent mistake is co-sleeping with your baby. Now, I know this is a controversial topic. I understand that some people choose this and they think there's no controversy here. This is our decision for our baby and our family, and I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm only here to give advice on my perspective professionally and as a mother, and having done some research. Co-sleeping is actually incredibly common. The Lullaby Trust in 2023 did a survey of 3,400 parents, and 9 out of 10 of those said that they co-slept with their baby. A lot of these parents didn't actually intend on co-sleeping with their baby, and it also included sleeping in a bed with the baby, but also falling asleep on the armchair. Adults falling asleep on the sofa or couch, however you say, with the baby, have actually increased the risk of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, by 50 times. That's compared to the baby sleeping in a safe environment in the crib on their back on their own. The National Child Mortality Database report of 2022 showed that 64 deaths of under ones between April 2019 and March 2021 were when a baby was sharing a sleep surface with an adult or older sibling. Like I say, co-sleeping is just not advised scientifically, but there are some parents who prefer this way of raising their children. I'm going to do another video about how to co-sleep safely with your children. Like I say, I know that a lot of parents never actually plan to co-sleep with their babies. It just happens, probably through exhaustion or because it's a bit easier when you're breastfeeding at night. Whatever the reason, there are ways that you can make co-sleeping safer if that's what ends up happening. If you can possibly avoid it, please don't though. It's just not the safest way of allowing your baby to have a sleep. If you want to learn a bit more about how to set up a safe sleep environment for your baby, find my video with a safe sleep checklist. The eighth common new parent mistake is allowing screens to become your baby's babysitter. Now, let's get real. We're all busy people. We've got an awful lot going on in our lives, and screens are just part of daily modern life. There's no denying it, they're here. But there's been a fair amount of research now to say that exposing your baby to screens too young for too long is just not good. I'm going to be doing another video about this quite soon, so subscribe to my channel to get notified when that one drops. The American Pediatric Academy actually advises no screen time before the age of 18 months. Personally, I think in an ideal world, of course, we wouldn't allow our babies to see screens, but it's just not realistic. Who hasn't put the TV on for their kids and enjoyed those 5 minutes of peace as they watch the favourite TV programme? The JAMA Pediatric Journal published a study of 7,097 children. They found that 1 to 4 hours of screen time per day by the age of 1 is linked to developmental delays in communication, fine motor skills by the age of 2. So what can we do instead of giving our children screens all the time? Well, floor play, obviously, reading to your baby, sensory toys, little toys with mirrors. There's plenty out there. Actually, my blog post here will give you quite a few ideas of what you can do to play with your baby. The 9th new parent mistake that I see quite a lot is actually over-changing the diapers. Now, that might sound like a really silly thing to say, but there comes to a point in the night where you don't actually need to change their diaper or nappy. Really, the most common type of nappy rash is contact dermatitis, and that's usually caused by poo and wee mixing together. Unless your baby's done a poo in their nappy, don't worry about changing it at night. Put on some barrier cream, zinc oxide or petroleum jelly, and that'll protect their skin. Obviously, if the nappy's getting very full, then you'll need to change it. But you can reduce the amount of time you're up at night and the amount you're disturbing your baby at night if you don't change the nappy more than you need to. Of course, there are lots of different types of nappy rash. So if you're not quite sure or the nappy ointment that you're using isn't working, then please take your baby to the doctor straight away. They will absolutely be able to tell you what the problem is. It could be a fungal or bacterial infection that needs prescription medication. The 10th new parenting mistake is not trusting your instincts as a mother. I've talked about this in other videos, but mother's instinct is just so powerful. And sometimes we can allow other things to overrule what we actually feel is right. We've got an incredibly strong protective instinct and a very strong bonding instinct as well. If you want to do skin to skin with your baby, please do it. It is just the best thing. Your baby wants to feel close to you. It really will help with their cognitive development as well. Sometimes your mother's instinct will go against what you've read in a textbook or what you think is true. Maybe you think, no, you shouldn't be ready for your sleep yet. You've still got another 1.5 hours wake window. But your instinct is saying, actually, the baby is tired. Please follow your instincts over a textbook. You're nearly always right. And your baby needs you to be responsive to them. Mother's instinct is so powerful. Sometimes you'll hear your baby cry and you'll know that it's different, and you'll know that actually it's a cry of pain or discomfort that other people may not be able to pick up on. So please don't let anyone persuade you otherwise. Follow your instincts. If you made some new parent mistakes with your first baby that you wouldn't dream of making with your second, leave a comment below and share with the community. I'll see you in the next video.